Welcome back. I'm Donis Wilkinson Keynes. The Nevis Island Administration hit the ground running in February with its first meeting with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. A technical assistance mission met with Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Mark Brantley, and the top officials in the Nevis Island Administration's Ministry of Finance on February 2nd. Premier of Nevis and the Minister of Finance in the Nevis Island Administration, the Honorable Mark Brantley, expressed his appreciation to the delegation who was in the Federation on a specially requested visit. He also thanked them for their assistance to the Federation over the years.
Part of the difficulty that we've had is in terms of measuring Nevis's position vis-a-vis the overall federal position. And certainly we hope that working with our technocrats here at the Ministry of Finance and with the IMF that we ultimately will get to a position where we can have perhaps a more adequate measure as to where Nevis as an island stands in relation to the overall formulation of GDP and the like for the country as a whole.
The second leg of the two-day training of electricity planning, strategic analysis and integrated resource planning for the employees of the Nevis Electricity Company Limited NEVLEC concluded on February 2nd. The training was facilitated by Deloitte and Touche LLP in the USA. Specialist leaders of the Deloitte Advisory, Martin Lane and Jai Gopal, as well as the project manager Neil Borland, were the facilitators of the training program, which took place at the Red Cross headquarters in Charlestown.
We are very bullish on renewable energy, green energy, and I think that the purpose of this, as I understand it, is to ensure that we have the right mix and to determine how that mix of energy into the grid will work for the benefit ultimately of the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts. So we're very grateful. I can say that whenever this team comes, both islands get good exposure and good training, because I know you've been in St. Kitts for 2 days, you're here for 2 days, you've worked with Skellig, you're working with NEVLEC, and I just wanted to extend our heartiest thank you to your team.
Much needed relief was brought to the fishermen of Bath Village when Premier of Nevis and Area Representative for St. John's Parish, the Honorable Mark Brantley, made a presentation to them on February 4th at Gallows Bay.
Late last year we had some hurricane damage, and the hurricanes came and devastated the fishing industry. A lot of the fishermen in Bath Village lost their pots, and I've been in touch with Alfred, who isn't here, Alfred Newton, and Joe Claxton, about what I could do as the area representative to try and assist and alleviate some of the difficulties that the fishermen were having. I couldn't help 100%, but I tried to put some resources together, and I'm happy that even though it's a few months later, that I'm here now in February to hand over some fish pot wire.
February 12th was Budget Day in Nevis when Premier and Minister of Finance in the Nevis Island Administration, the Honorable Mark Brantley, tabled the NIA's 2018 tax-free budget of $227.3 million as he delivered the 2018 budget address at the Nevis Island Assembly at Hamilton House. He said the administration is projecting to collect the amount of $137.92 million in recurrent revenue, a slight decrease of 2% when compared to fiscal year 2017. Premier Brantley noted that when compared to projected recurrent expenditure of $162.61 million, this provides a surplus on the recurrent budget of $5.31 million, which will be utilized to provide part funding for the capital expenditure program. The major allocations in expenditure are $9.6 million for the Office of the Premier, $82.3 million for the Ministry of Finance, $35 million for the Ministry of Communications and Works, $28.9 million for the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs, and $28.6 million for the Ministry of Education, Library Services and Information Technology. Meantime, the Nevis Island Administration, the Premier said, will review some of the existing charges across sectors to bring them more in line with the increasing cost of providing an improved level of service.
During this fiscal year, my government will implement a 30% increase in the water rates for all users across all sectors. We will also conduct a review of the rates charged across the health sector, including those currently charged for the disposal of garbage at the landfill. In addition, working with the federal government, we will seek to conduct a complete review of fees and charges in relation to the operations of vehicular traffic on our roads.
As noted by the Premier, the NIA will also seek to implement greater measures to improve its collection of property taxes and expedite the registration of newly constructed properties to the tax roll.
Far too many properties, beautiful as they are, no taxes are being paid on them. That has to change.
In addition, in order to reduce loss of revenue, the Nevis Island administration will be reassessing its tax concession policy, especially in the area of duty-free concessions, among other measures.
Duty-free concessions would only be granted to start-up businesses on the purchase of furniture and equipment. Existing businesses should now be in a position to provide adequate funding for replacement of capital items when they are fully depreciated. In addition, my government will no longer continue the policy of granting concessions to or contracting services from business entities which are continuously in arrears to the taxes to the Inland Revenue Department. Suitable arrangements for payment would have to be in place before such entities can be considered for further concessions or contracts. We will eliminate the random policy of granting duty-free vehicles to business entities unless it can be proven that the vehicle is essential for the business to operate. The deciding test will be whether the absence of a vehicle will make the business cease to exist. In instances where it is necessary to grant such concession, this concession will only be granted on a suitable vehicle that falls in line with the nature of the business activities. We will also continue to work with the federal government to amend the VAT legislation to allow for all entities operating in Nevis to file and pay their VAT in Nevis. Moreover, we will seek assistance to amend the relevant sections of the Companies Act, including Section 245, subsections 2 to 5, and also the Income Tax Act, so as to allow all business entities operating in Nevis to register, file, and pay their corporate income taxes in Nevis.
The slogan for the 2018 edition of Culturama was announced on February 13th during the Nevis Island Administration's 2018 budget debate. For the first time, the announcement was made by the Minister of Culture.
The slogan for this year's festival will be FET, Food and Folklore, Culturama 44. Let me repeat, FET, Food and Folklore, Culturama 44. We like it nice and catchy, right? And I wish to congratulate and to thank Miss Sanea Daniel of Cherry Gardens, a recent graduate of the Charlestown Secondary School, for penning the winning slogan for Culturama 44.
In other news, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, who is also the Minister of Sports, said his ministry will be changing how things are done with regard to the way sporting associations receive funding from the government.
And we want sporting associations to not only just come verbally and say, I want $15,000 or I want $30,000 to send 5 cricketers to Antigua or 10 cricketers to St. Martin. We want it to be structured in such a way that you bring your proposal, Mr. President, and persons within the Department of Sports will work closely with you to ensure that your proposal is sound. And when the budgetary support has been provided to you and you would have sent your persons overseas, we want a full report. We want accountability. We want to provide the assistance to associations that have a valid structure. We have an executive. And the assistance that we will be providing for these associations, Mr. President, will not be for just persons who travel overseas. Because we can provide assistance to associations if they want to host something locally as well, in a community. We have provided assistance in the past to all of the associations to host activities, and we'll continue to do so.
Valentine's Day must have been lovely for the staff of the Nevis Water Department. The Honorable Spencer Brand announced on February 14th that the Nevis Island Administration has begun the process of increasing the wages of the employees there.
While we would have requested certain threshold, we did not get where we really wanted to be at this time, but it is a start. And I want to commit to the workers of the Water Department, Mr. President, as long as I am responsible for their well-being, I will fight for them, Mr. President. I will fight for them. They are called upon, Mr. President, in the middle of the night. They have to leave their homes, their families, and the minute water goes, Mr. President, they are criticized left, right, and center, Mr. President. So we have to pay them, and we have to pay them well, Mr. President.
Mr. Brand, who is also the Minister of Labour, said he wants to see an improvement not only in wages but also the working conditions of the staff.
I believe, Mr. President, that if we want to get the best performance of our people, we must not only make them comfortable, but we must motivate them, Mr. President, to want to go to work at mornings. And so we will work on that, Mr. President, in 2018.
Ahead of sporting events which were to be held there in February, St. George's Recreational Grounds, otherwise known as Ball Pasture, received a facelift. On February 20th, Minister of Youth and Sports, the Honourable Eric Evelyn, along with Permanent Secretary Keith Glasgow, visited the site.
Of course, after the hurricanes last year, and I would have visited the grounds, I would have indicated that the stand in particular was not looking in good shape. And of course, from the beginning, when I was appointed as the Minister of Sport, I did indicate and I did commit to placing some emphasis on our grounds, our sporting facilities around the island. And of course, as Glasgow indicated, this being the sports term, it was incumbent on the Department of Sports to ensure that the facility here is in good shape. Of course, we normally have the Joycelyn Library Primary, the Gingerland Secondary School, and of course I think there's normally a preschool that have sports here as well. So we wanted to make sure that the grounds are in good shape, and not only the grounds but the pavilion as well. And so after I came and I realized what the situation was with the pavilion, I spoke to the PS and we decided that, listen, work must start in earnest here.
The team from the Caribbean Development Bank CDB, that is supervising the technical and vocational education and the training TVET enhancement project in the Federation, gave a progress report on the project to Premier the Honourable Mark Brantley and the Junior Minister of Education, the Honourable Troy Liburd, on February 20th. Work, which will commence in 2018 under the project, includes the renovation and expansion of the multipurpose centre at the Charlestown Secondary School and the construction of a technical education facility at the Gingerland Secondary School.
For too long, we've had persons who have gone out into society not having that piece of paper to say that they're skilled in whatever trade they perform. So something like this TVET program is definitely welcomed, and I'm pledging the full support of the Ministry of Education to getting the best possible project done.
The first of what is expected to be a series of monthly press conferences held by Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, took place on February 22nd. The Premier began the hour-long discourse by making a number of announcements.
That Mr. Stedman Truss has been reappointed as Cabinet Secretary and now serves also in the capacity of Senior Advisor to the Office of the Premier. Mr. Mervyn Hanley, whom you might see around here, always has a camera pointing at somebody, and the THG, they have been retained by the administration to provide press coverage of the administration generally and to the Office of the Premier in particular.
Among the announcements made on Thursday, February 22nd, during the Premier's press conference, was that the Nevis Island administration has a new legal advisor. Helen Lewis, who now holds the post, will oversee and provide guidance to the government on all legal matters.
I have advised our legal advisor to move with haste to operationalize integrity in public life legislation passed since 2013 and to draft for the consideration of the Cabinet freedom of information legislation to go to the House shortly. I can also advise that the social media policy that I spoke about has been drafted and is to be reviewed by the legal department and the Cabinet. We will say more on that shortly once we have the benefit of that advice. Colin Tyrrell has been named as Special Advisor in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports. I want to register our gratitude to Mr. Tyrrell for his service to the island and to the Cabinet as legal advisor. We know that he will bring his full knowledge and expertise to bear to assist Minister Eric Evelyn, our new Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport.
In addition, a new chairman of the Nevis Electricity Company Limited NEVLEC Board of Directors has been appointed.
Mr. Frank Evelyn has been tasked to chair NEVLEC, and the other members of the board shall be published in due course. I wish to publicly thank the Honorable Farrell Smitten for his excellent service to the board as chairman over the past few years. It will now be for Mr. Evelyn and his new board to work closely with management to implement the necessary policies to take NEVLEC forward and upwards.
The Premier also gave updates on ongoing projects by the Nevis Island Administration, including the Newcastle Police Station, Government House, and the water taxi pier to be constructed at Owali Beach. The water taxi pier is expected to be a first-class facility when completed.
The construction of that pier at Owali has been contracted to Secure Marine out of St. Martin. The approximate cost will be US $402,000. Two other bids were received from SKN Marine Works, Reggie Francis in St. Kitts, and a company that worked at Christoph Harbour, and those two other bids were not successful. The third bid from Secure Marine was a successful bid. The pier will be 250 feet long with a T at the end.
The Nevis Air and Seaports Authority NASPA will be given the task of managing the new water taxi pier at Owali Beach upon its completion. At a February 6th consultation regarding an environmental impact assessment of the construction of the water taxi pier, Deputy Premier and the Minister with responsibility for the project, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, emphasized his confidence in the Nevis Air and Seaports Authority.
I have every confidence in NASPA and their ability to manage that facility and manage it in a way that will not impact us negatively in any way. And you'll see that in the making. All of you would see that in the making. And if there is a chance it doesn't happen, Oral, Colin, even the Premier, I'll say to the Premier we have to do something to correct whatever there is. So I want to close by thanking you once again. I want to say to you that we as an administration will continue to do the things that we feel are important to the overall benefit of the people of Nevis and the island of Nevis on a whole.
The project is being funded by the Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation, SIDF. At his February 22nd press conference, Premier the Honorable Mark Brantley announced that the Nevis Island Administration will, in an unprecedented move, provide the necessary tools to make the opposition comfortable as constituency representatives.
An office for the opposition has been identified in the Solomon Arcade and will be provided fully furnished and staffed to the opposition. And today I had the privilege of speaking to P.S. Doe to ask him where we were on that, and I believe he understands that I want this to move forward with some alacrity. And so for that reason, an office will be provided. It ought to be an office for the leader of the opposition. We have seen that our constitution might not, I say might not, based on my reading of it, permit us to appoint a leader of the opposition. We have sought formal legal advice on the matter, and we shall be guided by the provisions of the Constitution and by that advice. But we feel that it's still important that regardless of that constitutional provision, that an office be provided for the use of the opposition. So even though it may not be, we may not be able to say it's an office for the leader of the opposition, it ought to be an office for the opposition in the circumstances.
Premier Brantley said the Nevis Island Administration intends to usher in a new engagement with members of the opposition and to work closely with them. The Nevis Island Administration's Cabinet of Ministers wrapped up activities for the month by spending February 28th visiting primary schools and reading for the students. According to Premier and the Minister of Education, the Honorable Mark Brantley, the exercise was part of the observance of Black History Month.
The first book we're going to read says Something Beautiful. Okay, you have a question? Yes, I do. I have a family. We have a beautiful island of Nevis. And look at all of you. All of you are beautiful. Now there's another story, Dream Big. But my favorite thing about the story is that whatever age you are, even at your age is now, and you're how old? How old are you?
7, 8.
7, 8, 9? It is never too early to start to dream about what you want to be. Okay? And whatever you want to be, if you're prepared to work hard, you can achieve it.
72 days done and more to come. Stay tuned as we near 100 days of the new Nevis Island administration.